the fourth reading of Parshat Kisave, Moshe Rabbeinu begins to instruct the Jewish people about the first day in the Holy Land of Israel. It's going to be a busy one. Chapter 27, Vayitzav Moshe v'ziknei Yisrael es ha'amid. Moses and the elders of Israel instruct the nation, Lamer saying, Shomer eskol hamitzvah asher anochi mitzava escham hayom. You have to very scrupulously and carefully observe all the mitzvahs that I am going to give you today, although it says it's kol ha-mitzvah. So Rashi says, this is not something about the distant future. Keep the mitzvahs when? This is Lashon Haiva, this is now. You have to continuously, always keep the mitzvahs. And he gives us a French word. So firstly he says, here's what you have to do now, today, always, continuously. That's what you have to do. Then he says, it'll come to pass in the day that you cross the Jordan River, into the land that the Lord your God gives you. You will establish large stones, and you'll coat them in lime. So the details of what exactly happened and how they set up these stones is not really clarified here in the scripture. So Rashi essentially borrows a number of descriptions from the book of Yehoshua in chapters 4 through 8, where we speak about the Jewish people coming into the land of Israel and what they did. And that's where he kind of fills in what's missing over here. Rashi begins by telling us that Bayarden, in the Jordan River itself, as a memory of the crossing of the Jordan River and the miracle that happened, so there were stones that were established there. And then afterwards, Toitzi Misham, you'll take stones out from the river bed. These are acheres, not the same stones. You'll set up 12 stones to know where you cross the Reed Sea. Then there'll be 12 other stones that you harvest from the riverbed. V'tivne mehem mizbeach bahar Evel. You're going to build a mizbeach on a mountain called Evel. That's where we're going to find out there's going to be curses that are given. And that's where you'll write the things that Moshe Rabbeinu instructs them now, and they'll bring various offerings upon that mountain. And of course, this is exactly what Yehoshua did, as it describes in detail in the 8th chapter of the book of Joshua. It says that Yehoshua built the altar, and he wrote on the stones the repetition of the Torah, the Mishnah Torah, the book of Deuteronomy, which was delivered by Moshe Rabbeinu. And then he took the Mizbeach apart, and he brought those stones to Gilgal, and over there he set up a monument. Nimtzeis ata omer, Rashi says, you can see here that there actually are three types or three sorts of stones. Shloisha mini avonim hayu. There was shtei mesrei biyarden, 12 stones set up in the Jordan River itself, which commemorated the area that they crossed the Jordan River. Uchanegdan, and correspondingly, symmetrically, there was Big Gilgal. There was 12 stones set up in a place called Gilgal. That was the first camp of the Jewish people in the Holy Land. Uchanegdan, and then there was another 12 stones, and these 12 stones were used to build a Mizbeach, and that happened in Har Evel, in Mount Evel. As the Gemara in Masechah Sota on page 35 explains to us in great detail. So that's the business of the stones. That's the three sets of stones. Stones in the Jordan, stones in Gilgal, and finally stones for which a Mizbeach was built in Har Evel. Moshe Rabbeinu gives instructions about the stones. He says, V'chasafta aleihem eskol divrei haTorah hazos. You'll write on these stones, you'll inscribe these stones with all of the words of this Torah. L'ma'an, in order, asher tovi el ha'oretz es Hashem asher Hashem elekecha nesen lecha, so that you might be brought into the land that the Lord God gives you. And eretz zovas chalav advash, a land that flows with milk and honey. Kasher diber Hashem elekecha v'sechalach, the way the Lord God has spoken to your ancestors. So now we know that you have to set up these large stones, and we also know that after covering them with lime, they have to be inscribed with the entire Torah. So, our sages tell us that the stones were inscribed, indeed, as we'll soon find out in Rashi. This was done b'shivim lashon. As the Torah goes on to narrate the details, Moshe Rabbeinu says in verse 5, Uvanisa, you will build Sham Mizbeach LaHashem Elekecha, a mizbeach for the Lord your God. A mizbeach havanim, it'll be a mizbeach, an altar made entirely of stone. Le'sonif aleim barzel, there'll be no iron used to chisel or score the stones. Avanim shleimais, they'll be organically whole, natural stone. Tivne es mizbach Hashem Elokecha, you build the altar of the Lord your God. V'ha'alisa olav oilis l'Hashem Elokecha, you'll bring scent offerings to the Lord your God. V'zavachta shlomim, and then you'll bring shlomim offering. And those are partly burnt in the mizbech and partly eaten by the kohanim or others. So v'achalta sham, you'll eat it. V'samachta lefnei Hashem Elokecha, and you'll rejoice before the Lord your God. So these karbonos are directly linked to the concept of the samachta. It means you'll be joyous for having come into the land of Israel. And then in verse 8 we hear, V'chasafta ha'alavanim, you'll write on these stones, as kol divrei Torah zeis, all of the words of this Torah. Bayar heitev, you'll write it well explained. What does it mean by heitev? Rashi says, V'shivim loshen, the archetypal, proverbial 70 languages, spoken languages. So you'll write the whole Torah on the stones.
What kind of stones are these?
What kind of stones are these?
Very big.
So the Ibn Ezra quotes Psad Yigon as saying that they must have been enormous stones to write. But
From
he
the
says,
Jordan River.
From the Jordan River. But the Ibn Ezra says, in the name of the Psad Yigon, that they weren't actually written the whole Torah. He says it was just a list of 613 mitzvahs. It's called the whole Torah, but it's a list of 613 mitzvahs. That's what they wrote there. Ramban says that clearly these had to be enormous stones, or he says this whole thing was miraculous. And either way, the fact that it was all done in one afternoon means it had to be miraculous. So we're talking about a miraculous event that happened with large stones when the Jewish people came into the land of Israel. The Psad Yigon says when you come to the land of Israel, so these large stones would be like a monument. You come at the border, say, here's what we stand for, this is our constitution. A list of the mitzvahs, be easy to read. And that says B'shivim Lashon in 70 languages. For anybody who would come, people would be able to understand. At any rate, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Vaydaber Hashem, Moshe v'hakenim, Moshe and the Kohanim speak, and the Levites, the Kohanim who are from the tribe of Levi, Al Kol Yisrael, to the people of Israel, and they say, Haskei Sushma Yisrael, listen up, you Jewish people, Hayim Azeni Yesol Hashem Elikecha. It is today that you have become a nation unto the Lord your God. Rashi says, Haskes is kitargume, like the Targum renders it. Atseis, listen up. Hayei mazeh, today they became a nation? That's interesting. What happened today? Oh, no. Well, really, every day. Every day you became a nation. That is to say, B'chol yom yiyu beinecha kilo hayom basam imei bebris. That every day you should see as if today you have come into the covenant. Very similar to what we talked about yesterday, the idea of the mitzvahs being fresh. And because that's the case, we should listen carefully to all of the words of the Lord our God. Now, the question becomes this. What's up with the Mizbeach on Har Evel? Why did it have to be built there? There's going to be two mountains that feature very prominently, two mountains when we come into the land of Israel. They are known as Har Grizim and Har Evel. In Har Grizim, there was 6 of the tribes standing. On Har Evel, there was the other 6 of the tribes standing, right? They divided the people, the color war, into 2 mountains. And the Kohanim were in the middle. And then the Kohanim began to chant. And they would turn to Har Grizim, and they would say, Baruch HaIsh, blessed is the person. And then they would turn to Har Evel, and they would say, Aron HaIsh, cursed is the person. And this way it went back and forth 11 times. So Rabbi Yosef, Bechar Shor, also known as Zivash, he says that this is because the curses were delivered on Har Evel. And it seems that when they got these harsh words like Aron HaIsh, cursed is a person who doesn't establish this Torah, so therefore the entire Torah was actually written there, and they accepted upon themselves a Torah that says with like a klala, like a curse, saying this is not an elective thing. Judaism is not, if you like it, grab it, enjoy it, have fun with it. You don't want, that's fine. No, it doesn't work that way. You get, the blessings are not elective. There's actually negativity coming your way if you don't. And he says something else. He says, the people who are standing on Har Evel, what do you think they felt like? They're getting all the curses. People standing on Har Grizim, they felt great. They're getting all the blessings. So in order to give them a little comfort, that's why the Mizbeach with the offerings is built on Har Evel. So the people of Har Evel felt like we have the Beis HaMikdash. It wasn't really a Beis HaMikdash, but it was a Mizbeach. It was an altar. And the Karbanot, the offerings are brought there. And the offerings create this connection, this closeness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So they were on the mountain in which curses were delivered, but it was also the mountain of the offerings. And that's why the Mizbeach was built at Har Evel, not on Har Gerizim. That's what Rivash says. So what's the joy about? It says, V'samachta l'fnei Hashem Elokecha. The Sepharno says, the joy is that you're entering into a covenant with the Lord your God. That's a cause for joy.
The curses and the blessings occurred once in history, right? Jewish history. And that
The
was
curses and blessing was once in Jewish history is the day we came into Israel.
Israel. Okay.
Yeah, who delivered it? HaKohanim, HaLeviim. Reb Sadi Goren says that's the whole tribe, the Kohanim and the Leviim. But the Targum Yonasan ben Azil says Kahanaya ben Levi. It was the Kohanim who were from the tribe of Levi. So there's different ways of understanding exactly what this means. But at any rate, they were told to listen up carefully. And Moshe Rabbeinu at that time said, this is what's going to be happening. There's going to be some of you standing on Har Evel, some of you standing on Har Gerizim, and there's going to be blessings and curses that are coming your way.
And this is before any of the conquering of the land occurred. This is like they crossed over.
This is they crossed over, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So why did Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, Vayitzav Moshe. Moshe had to give a command. Vayitzav comes from the word mitzvah, or to instruct. Moshe said, this is how it's going to be. Why did Moshe have to say that? Why couldn't he just tell him? So the Sif Sikronim says, because the people who are going to have to stand on Har Gerizim say, no, we don't want to do that. Moshe says, this is an instruction.
You mean Har Evel?
Har Evel, pardon me. This is an instruction. You need to do this. And it's not you being cursed, but ultimately it's all of the people, the Jewish people. It's a choice we have. That's to the Ei Anochi. It goes back to the Parshat a few weeks ago. You see, it's right in front of you. Bracha, Klala, blessings or curses. You have to choose. It's up to you. You can choose either way. You know, there's a lot of people who are afraid to get the sixth Aliyah this week because it has all kinds of curses in it. So what happens? The Baal Korah gets the curses. Chas v'shalom. Chas v'shalom. The Jewish people are receiving the word of Hashem. It's just because nobody wants to be singled out and people are afraid, so we get accustomed. The Baal Korah just keeps reading. He makes the blachas, he keeps reading. My Zayd Alav Shalom once told me that in the shtetl where his father was the Rav, they don't have a custom where the Baal Korah refused to take the Aliyah, and nobody wanted the Aliyah. And the whole shul, he remembers as a boy, the whole shul was at a standstill. And he told me he remembers his father stood up and he says, give me the Aliyah. I'm not afraid of an Aliyah of Torah, give me the Aliyah. Anyway, what happens is that the Jewish people actually listen to Hashem. As we continue in the fifth reading, Elu Yamdu Levarach Ha'am. These are the ones who will stand to bless the people. Al Har Gerizim. Ba'avrachem es hayardim, when you go across the Jordan River. Who are they? Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Yosef, and Binyamin. Ve'elu Yamdu Ala Klala. And these are the ones who will stand there to get the curse on Har Evel. And who are they? Reuven, Gad, Asher, Zvulun, Dan, and Naphtali. And then in verse 14, Vanu HaLeviim, the Leviim will raise their voices up. V'yamru, and they will say, El Kol Ish Yisrael, to all of the Jewish people, not to the people of one mountain or the other. And they start to say, Or Ish Asher Yaseh Pesel B'Seicha. Cursed is the person who's going to make any kind of molten image or idol. Toyavas Hashem, this is abominable to God. Maisi de Chorosh, the hands of an artisan, the work of an artisan. V'sam B'Seiser, and he puts it quietly in a hidden place, so he could politically be correct and look like he's a very devout person and very pious, but really, behind closed doors, he's worshipping idols. And the people said, V'anu chol ha'am, the whole people said, Amen. Wherein? Ora makla v'imei, who cursed is the person who demeans his father or mother, and the people said, Amen. And so it goes here. We have now 11 different curses, straight through. So what's 11 curses? What does the number 11 correspond to? It should be 12.
12 tribes minus 1?
12 tribes, yeah, 12 tribes minus 1 is 11. The question is, why do we have 12 tribes? So you take a look at Rashi. In verse 24, Rashi says that Moshe HaDarshan is the one, that Moshe the preacher, he gave us the insight here. He said, Achadas Arum, there's going to be 11 curses here. And that's Keneged Yud Aleph Shvatim. That corresponds to
11 tribes?
11 tribes. It's not 11 tribes. It's 12 tribes. What's going on with it? So he says, that's because Keneged Shimon Lekasav Ar corresponding to Shimon, he didn't want to curse. Why not? He didn't want to bless him. And because he didn't want to bless him, that's why he didn't want to curse him. And therefore, he made it 11, not 12. So, of course, the obvious question is, okay, like that's like arbitrary. He pulled it out of a hat. He says, Keneged Shimon lehoya. Shimon could be any of the 12. How do you know that's Keneged Shimon? How do you know that Shimon is the one who wasn't included? Maybe it was somebody else who wasn't included. It's just 11.
Why would it be Shimon?
Huh?
Why would it be Shimon?
Why would it be Shimon?
Yeah.
Because Shimon made a lot of trouble. The story with Zimri and the Moabite princess, and they put Moshe, threw down the gauntlet with Moshe, and they said, who told you we can marry Midianite? So he made a lot of trouble there. And Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to bless him.
Does it also stem from Shimon's attack on?
Yeah, Shimon and Levi were troublemakers. Of course, Levi rises to great prominence, and Shimon becomes like itinerant preachers and what is it called? Schoolhouse on the Prairie teachers, and they have to go from place to place and teach the kids on the farms. So the truth is that there are multiple ways of understanding these curses, how they correspond to the different tribes. In fact, the Mendel and Rabbi Luria, for example, not the only ones, they explain in a very interesting way how Shimon has been exempted. And the Mendel actually even includes Shimon. He says Shimon really ultimately got blessed, and there is a curse for Shimon too. But the thing is this, the Rebbe says their methodology is all futuristically oriented. And that wouldn't work for Rashi. Because what Rashi needs is something that the child who's learning the Chumash now should be able to understand. How would he understand it? He would have to understand it based on everything he's learned up till this point. He can't know about what he learned in the future. The child's learning the Chumash in order. And in order to know everything, understand every little detail, he's going to have to remember everything he learned. So that means there must be already a hint as to which curse would go to which tribe that even a child can figure out. And the question is, what is that? Because Rashi doesn't elaborate. So it must be that you can figure it out by yourself. So it took the school child known as Ben Chamish Lemikra, who lived in the Rebbe's Sichos, to figure this out. And here is a digest of the 11 different Arurim, where you see the 11 curses, how they correspond to all the tribes, and you'll notice that Shimon is actually absent. Page Pezayin. Let's go through this. So let's take the first curse. It says, cursed is the person who makes a molten image. So what is that? Which tribe does that correspond to? Which tribe had a proclivity for idolatry? Or have we already read in the Torah was kind of leaning towards that behavior, that they needed to be scared straight and warned, don't you dare. I'll give you a hint. You have to reach deep, deep, deep into the very beginning of the story of our peoplehood.
My goodness.
Go back to the time of Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu? Yeah.
No tribes then.
Well, there were no Shvatim, but the Torah alludes to certain things already then, and Rashi talks about it. The question was not whether these events happened. The question was, does a child learning the Chumash now have the ability to figure this out? So the Rebbe said that the business of the pesel, of the molten image, and of the idol refers to the tribe of Dan. Why Dan? Sha'asidim lahamid v'nachalasim, they would establish in their ancestral inheritance, in their province, they would establish an egel, they would establish a golden calf to worship for Avodah Zarah. How do we know this? We didn't get there yet. Because Rashi tells us in Parshat Lech Lecha, when Avraham Avinu pursued the captors of Lot, it says, Vayirdaif, he pursued them ad Dan. Aha, until done. Rashi says, what do you mean ad done? And Rashi's words are, Sham Toshash Kreiche. This is where Avraham Avinu ran out of steam. Sharash Hasidim Banov Lahamid B'Sham Egel, because he came to the spot and he had a premonition. He said, this is the place where my children will establish a golden calf. So the children, while learning the Chumash and Parshat Kisaveh, they remember this in Parshat Lech Lecha. They go, oh, done? That's right. He's the guy. That's the tribe that's going to be predisposed to making an idol. Or Maklo Avavimei. Who is the one who might, demean their parents, not properly respect?
Reuven.
No, the Rebbe says this corresponds to Shevet Asher, because it's Avivimei, father and mother.
Oh. Okay.
And Reuven was just disrespectful to his father.
Yeah.
So he says it's written in the blessings of Yaakov in Parshas Vayechi. It says over there, Osher Shmeina Lachmei, that Osher gives delicacies, rich delicacies. V'hu yitim adani melech. He will give the delicacies of the king. In other words, that the children are going to have extraordinary affluence. And what happens when children have extraordinary affluence? What does the young generation do? When they grow up with tremendous plenty, invariably they become highly disrespectful to their parents. And we hear about that earlier in the Torah, that we read about parents doing very well, and then it goes south. And the parents have a son who's a soreh rumore, he's a rebellious child. And they say, Bonenu zeh soreh rumore, this child of ours is rebellious, and eno shomeh b'kaleinu, doesn't listen to us, zolel v'soveh. He's a boozer and a binger. In other words, he is somebody prone to excesses, to the excessive material pursuit. So we see that the affluence or the prosperity of Usher, and especially with regard that he'll have so much that his children will inherit so much, that already we're predisposed to a situation where they'll be disrespectful. It doesn't mean they have to be. It means there's a predisposition. In other words, you have to know what your weakness is. When you know what your issues are, you know how to contend with them. Number 3, Orav Masig V'Re'eu. The next curse is about somebody who might move the property line, try to usurp somebody else's property. So this corresponds to Yisachar, because once again in the blessings of Yaakov, Yisachar is metaphorized as a chamar gorim, as a bony donkey, who's roivetz bein hamishpasayim, who crouches at the borders. In other words, he's always pushing the envelope. He's always crouching at the border. He's always at the property lines. And therefore, this Yisachar is pushing the property lines. He said, right, don't push the property lines. Cursed is the person who would give bad advice to the person who's blind in that area and cause him to stumble. This refers to Binyamin. Why Binyamin? Because many of his children were cut down by their own fellow Jews. Where were they cut down? In the desert. Why were they cut down? Because there was a rebellion, a sedition, and the people decided we're going back to Egypt. 40 years later! And what happened? And the Jewish people had to pursue them. And it says, Kishemes Aaron, when Aaron HaKohen died, Nistal Kanane HaKoved, the clouds of glory dissipated. The Canaanim, which is a code name for Amalek, came and attacked the Jewish people. And the people lost their desire. They became demotivated. And they wanted to go back. And it says the Bnei Levi pursued them. And they fought with them. And they made them come back. But not after a heavy and bloody price was paid. Who paid the bloody price? Binyamin. Binyamin did. How do we know this? Because when we speak about families of Binyamin, there's entire families that are missing. Where'd the families go? He said, oh, sorry to tell you, these families, they didn't make it. They were lost in the Civil War. So that Civil War that's referred to as Binyamin, that is 5 families from Binyamin were lost. Now it's true there was one family of Gad that was lost and one family from Shimon, but 5 families from Binyamin. So that's the Mashge Iver B'derech. They were blind on the way. They had a blind spot, a huge blind spot on the way, and they lost their clarity. Or Mata Mishpat, cursed is the one who might pervert justice. That would naturally correspond to Yehuda. Why is that? Because Yaakov has already identified Yehuda as the source of law. Yaakov Rabbi says, "Liyasser shevet mi Yehuda." No tribe shall depart from Yehuda. And the lawgiver will come forth from him. Cursed is the person who might sleep with his father's wife. Oy vey. This corresponds to Reuven, because that's what it says about Reuven. Vayelech Reuven vayishkav es Bila pelegish aviv. Reuven went and slept with Bila, but it never really happened that way. And was only Bilbu Yitzu Yav. He just moved his father's bedding around. But the Torah uses that euphemism. So the tribe of Reuven had then a predisposition, a proclivity, chas v'shalom, in that direction. Moshe said, "Don't you dare! Off limits. This is not good behavior." Number 7, or sheikhav and behema. It's getting worse. Now you have people sleeping with sheep. Who does that correspond to?
Somebody who has a lot of sheep, obviously.
Somebody who really likes the sheep, yeah.
So that would have to be
That would have to
Reuven,
be?
God, Chatzim,
Reuven we talked about already.
So God.
Chatzi Shev Menashe only got stuck there.
God.
Beautiful. Now you're thinking like a Bachamish Lemikra. Okay, good, very good. What's the next one? Or a Sheikh of Machoisei. Oy vey. This guy is with his sister. This is not good. This corresponds to Naphtali. Why?
What?
Because, why does it correspond to Naphtali? Because Naphtali's name comes from Naftuli Elikim Naftali and Machoisei. I became connected to my sister. I caught up with my sister. Rachel Imenu was trying to have children, and she was bringing children into the world, and she gave her maidservant, his name was Billah, and she says, Naftuli. I got bound, connected, sewn to my sister. So there's a certain closeness, a closeness over there. And therefore we could see that there was a special closeness between these siblings, and when there's special closeness, that's a good thing, but everything is a double-edged sword, so it has to be with care. Or Sheikhavim Chesantei. Oy vey. Now we have a person has to be warned not to sleep with, you guessed it, his mother-in-law. And who does that correspond to? Who does that correspond to? Mother-in-law. Come on, you should know this. But a good Ben Chomesh L'Nikra, you have to know this. Yosef! He marries Potiphar's daughter.
Okay.
Potiphar's wife from a...
He didn't actually do it. But
He didn't do anything, but there's a...
And he
He
wasn't his
almost,
mother-in-law.
I know he wasn't his mother-in-law at the time, but she did become his mother-in-law, and he almost, until the image of Yaakov came and he ran out. So there's a predisposition. So that would correspond to Yosef. Cursed is the one who strikes down his friend. Who struck down his friends? Or who struck down other people? Who took a sword at the age of 13 and went on a rampage? You know, Shimon and Levi, but Levi's not. But Shimon's not included here, so it must be Levi.
So how do you know it's for Levi and not Shimon?
Because we know that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to curse Shimon because they want to bless him. So therefore, we're going to have something that works for each of the tribes. Well,
Levi's a holy tribe.
Levi is a holy tribe. They turned it around.
Why would you need to curse?
They turned it around. They're being warned. It doesn't that getting cursed. Cursed is a person who does this.
Yeah.
Shimon, he divided up. He didn't trust him. Levi put it left in a position of power. And incidentally, Levi maintains his military prowess and strength when it comes to the time of Hanukkah. As Rashi tells us when he comments on the blessings to Levi, which is a blessing also of military prowess and might. In Zeis HaBracha, Rashi comments that it refers to the Chashmonai. We have no record of Shimon being anything like that. And finally, cursed is the person who takes bribery, who loved money, who was doing really well, who had a big fat bank account. It wasn't Yisachar. He was busy learning Torah. It was Zvulun. So Zvulun was the merchant. He was making the money. So you say, you can make the money, do the right thing with it. Don't leave it. They say money is like manure. If you spread it around, it makes tremendous amount of growth ensue. If you leave it in one place, it stinks like a pile of it. And so, the point here is that Zvulun has this predisposition to money, and therefore he says, don't have sticky fingers, and don't look for bribes. No corruption. And so we see that Rebbe says you can actually identify all of the 11 different curses to each of one of the particular Shvatim, and the only Shevet who's missing is Shimon. That's the point. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to bless him. He also wasn't going to make any corresponding kind of aror. And so now we see how this perfect corollary, beautiful symmetry, and the mountain of blessings, the canyon of curses, everything worked out just exactly so.
What was exactly Shimon's...
We should all be blessed, and nobody should do anything wrong. And nobody should have any curses. And it should be, they say, Tichla Shana Kol Yisrael. Today is Chai Elul. It's the beginning of the final count up to Rosh Hashanah. On Chai Elul, we correspond to last year's high holidays in Tishrei. And we say, Tichla Shana Kol Yisrael, that this year and all of its curses, speaking of curses, should come to their end. Taschel Shana Becheseha, a new year filled with only blessings, should unfold. And we should only hear good news in Mitzvah Shem. Tavshin Pei.
Amen.